Let's get started. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us here at our introduction to marketing analytics with Mixpanel. Over these next 30 minutes, we're just going to be giving you some insight on how you can start using Mixpanel to not only understand your product data, but also tie it back to the full user journey, pre-acquisition through retention. So, as I mentioned right before, we can use this Q&A module for you to get all your questions in. Yes, thank you, Scott. This will be recorded. We will be sending a follow-up recording right after that. So thank you for the reminder. All right. A little bit about me. So my name is Perla. I head up our global demand generation and growth marketing team here at Mixpanel. Really excited, as you can imagine, to be here talking about marketing analytics and what's possible with the Mixpanel platform. After I'm done with a few slides, I'll be sharing this over to Shane and Ruben to get more in depth and under the hood on what actually is possible. So why marketing analytics? We all know digital marketing analytics is not new. Since the mid-90s, Google has obviously made it possible to track and collect all this early website data, giving us marketers the ability to understand how users are obviously interacting with the site. So with this, we get insights to these metrics such as email open rates, web page visits. We can see click-through rate, session information, and everything coming in that we can typically see. But the issue we're typically paired with is this data actionable? And can we actually optimize and improve our campaigns? Can we actually think about what are those customer interactions that we want following that acquisition? And a lot of the times that leads us to not being able to see insight like what's the product data, what's the purchase data. And with just more access to more and more information every single day, and just a need to be really aligned with the sales team, with the product team, things like the product-led growth motions. It's really the priority to be able to bring teams together to look at a single source of truth. And a lot of that is, being able to see the same data source, use the same platform, be able to speak to each other using one common language. And so knowing that this is a priority brings me on to why Mixpanel and why Mixpanel marketing analytics. So where Mixpanel has always done well and where we've always been strong is in allowing you to understand those product metrics from acquisition through engagement to retention. That has always been there. And so with, the voice of the customer, with Google obviously moving away from universal analytics to GA4, going on to event-based analytics where they were using session-based before, there really was an opportunity for us to add those pre-acquisition steps formally. And, that typically sit within marketing orgs, so such as the awareness, the intent, and now be able to have one single platform that ties them into the user journey with the product. And so we're able to take those vanity metrics, the ad spend data, online interactions, purchases, combine that with those already existing deep product analytics with Mixpanel, be able to then give that to a single org with their marketing, sales, product, dev teams, all using the same data, same platform, all working collectively to improve that user experience. And so the goal is that with Mixpanel marketing analytics, you get the combination of the new and existing features that help marketers assess the full user journey. So, and just again, teams who are using Mixpanel today for analytics save time and money by seeing those insights in real time instead of waiting for a weekly report to reallocate your digital spend. Being able to increase revenue, decrease expenses, you get a single platform, you're able to understand where you're getting the highest return on your ad spend, where you're getting your lowest customer acquisition costs, driving towards a higher lifetime value. Because again, you're seeing the journey end to end instead of fragmented. And then by putting analytics at the heart of the organization, everyone is aligned on what growth levers are working and how are you driving towards hitting those business goals. And so data-informed decision-making, you have better product and marketing collaboration. There's just a greater agility and responsiveness to those customer needs. So I'll leave you with this, a quote from Paolo over, the Chief Product Officer at Immobiliare, which is the #1 real estate site in Italy. Paolo and the team have created a data-informed culture with Mixpanel. They now have one data source, all speaking the same language across the product management team, engineering, design, marketing, and the C-suite. And so we're really excited to go in deep and now welcome Shane and Ruben to the stage where they'll actually walk us through the platform.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Perla. Hello, everybody. My name is Shane. I am a solutions engineer here at Mixpanel. I'm going to be the guy walking you through Mixpanel Marketing Analytics today, showing you actually what's possible and some of the new features and functionality that we've added to Mixpanel to really allow marketers to capture that entire full funnel experience end to end. I do want to once again reiterate, if you have any questions at any point during this, just throw them in the chat, throw them in the Q&A. We'll get on them. And at the end of the demo, we'll loop back and answer those questions live. And if you submitted questions before the webinar actually started, those are going to be answered by Ruben in the chat over the course of the demo I'm about to give. So in case you have any questions, in short, they will be answered. And with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. All right. So this is Mixpanel. I'm sure many of you on the call are familiar with what you can do in Mixpanel now, what you've always been able to do very well in Mixpanel. But just to do, I guess, a quick 1-minute overview of some of the strengths and use cases for Mixpanel today for anyone who might not be familiar. Mixpanel is really good at taking in your event-based data and allowing you to answer questions and get to value quickly and understand your product and your users at a deeper level. So for example, I can go ahead and select data about my purchases, and I can quickly go and break down by what product people are purchasing. I can go ahead and change the visualization, do comparisons to prior months, percentage overall, things of that nature, very quickly and easily here in the Insights report. I'm also able to build out funnels very quickly and efficiently as well. If I tap over to our funnel report, we could go ahead and build something out. For example, sign up and then purchase, see where our users are doing well or they're dropping off. Again, how it's performing month over month, change over time, and seeing points of friction in key user journeys. I could go ahead and also open a flow, which is our third core report. And a flow essentially is going to go ahead and map out the span of all possible user journeys from one touch point to another, answering the question, what are my users doing to get from one key conversion point to the next, when maybe that won't be totally clear to you without using a tool like this. And finally, we have a retention report, which allows you to say, for people completing one key action, how well do they retain and come back and complete another key action after they complete that first one? What is our overall net retention based on a customizable definition for retention that you yourself can create? So this is some of what Mixpanel can do today. But really, what is the key common denominator here? What is the same for all this? Is that it's all to the kind of down funnel in the product metrics and questions that we're asking here. You remember back in the slides that Perla showed that really the whole user journey, the entire user funnel also has this top of funnel piece where they're initially coming to the site. They're engaging with an ad. They're searching for you organically on Google. And maybe it's important to know how that piece can impact some of the down funnel pieces as well. And now with some of these new marketing analytics features in Mixpanel, you can actually go and do that. And so the first thing I want to demonstrate in that kind of top of funnel piece is now you can actually go ahead and ingest ad data into Mixpanel. So how does that work? Let's go ahead and click into this ad spend event. And you'll notice when we do that, we get this kind of boring line that is the total ad spend over the last 7 days, but it looks like it's just one per thing. The reason it looks like it's just one event per thing is that this is actually a dump of ad data, one dump per day of different metrics that we're pulling from different ad providers and throwing into Mixpanel. So if we look at the properties on this ad data event, you'll notice we have things like clicks, cost, network, impressions. These are things that an ad network like Google Ads, like Facebook ads will provide to you in aggregate on a daily basis. We have ways now to take those and ingest them into Mixpanel, allowing you to actually go ahead and conduct some marketing type analysis and build marketing metrics off of those figures. So an example of how you might do this, and let's actually try to do something with this ad spend event now, is we can go ahead and let's say, look at the total cost per day. Now, this is a little bit more interesting. Now, instead of just looking at that generic line that didn't have much meaning, we can see how much we're actually spending every day on ads. Are we spending too much? Are we spending too little? Are we staying within budget? We can also add another metric in. Let's go ahead and add the other ad spend event, and let's select maybe clicks this time. So now we have cost and clicks on the same graph. Something you guys might be very familiar with is a very common marketing metric called cost per click. And we can go ahead and build this out now very easily from the data we just threw up on this graph here. So we're going to go into the formulas tab. We're going to do cost per click, CPC, and we're going to go ahead and type A, meaning that A up there, divide by B, the B down there. We're going to apply the formula. And what do we have now? We have a cost per click metric day by day. How much are we actually spending? What is the efficiency of our ad spend overall? Is it trending up? Is it trending down? We have visibility into that now. Something I do want to call out is that, well, I built out cost per click here. The kind of flow that I just did to do that is very similar for really any common marketing metric you might have. Cost per impression, cost per 1,000 impressions, return on ad spend, things of that nature. You can simply build out by taking in any numbers that are spit out by these ad providers, throwing them into Mixpanel, and just doing some very basic math on them to build out which metrics do you care about. This is really cool because you're not stuck to a set of 4 or 5 metrics that we allow you to have. You're allowed to build out your own metrics, including ones that might not be so more common, but that have meaning and value to you and your organization. Something else that's actually very interesting and a key differentiator from Mixpanel from, say, like a Google Analytics is something like this. Let me switch over to a bar graph to make this abundantly clear. And let me actually go ahead and break down by network here. You might be wondering what this network is. Well, it's actually which ad network did this ad data come from. You'll notice I'm actually ingesting from 4 ad networks here. And I can see side by side, where am I spending ad data most efficiently? This is cool and unique. The reason for that is if you're living in Google Analytics, for example, they don't want you using Twitter ads. They don't want you using LinkedIn ads. Absolutely not. They want to keep you in the Google ecosystem. So as a result, you're going to have a tough time trying to get this kind of cross comparison analysis. I hear a lot of people today do this by, pulling up a tab of every individual dashboard and all their things and tabbing over and crunching the numbers. And it seems painful. It seems slow. It seems inefficient. Something like this solves for that kind of problem and allows you to do cross network comparisons, not just with the numbers are spitting out on you, but with any other metric that you build out in Mixpanel that you care about the most, and really get a gauge on not just your marketing efficiency overall, but on a network by network basis. Something else very interesting that I do want to call out, and let me go back to maybe a line chart for this and clear out some of this stuff. Let's go back to the line chart. We can go ahead and say, have this cost that we already have now. Maybe we're curious if cost is actually affecting some down funnel things. When we spend more on ads, for example, do we get more signups, right? We can ask that question now, and we can actually go ahead and see if one is actually impacting the other. And we can maybe even create a metric down here of, cost per signups, right? Not just key marketing metrics, but actually look at with some ad spend metrics. Do they actually impact the number of down funnel events that happen? That's really difficult to do. And it's something that's not an event-based analytics tool like Mixpanel that allows you to ingest ad data. Very, very difficult to get at those numbers. Mixpanel makes it really, really easy. So quickly to summarize what we've seen so far, we've done a quick overview of what some of the strengths of Mixpanel and some of the capabilities of Mixpanel that have always been there. We've seen that we can ingest ad data into Mixpanel. We've seen how we can take the different pieces of aggregate values that these ad networks provide and put them all into a Mixpanel event, build out metrics with them, compare them cross network, as well as compare them to different product metrics, down funnel metrics at the same time. So that's one new piece of our new marketing suite, but there's a couple more as well. And another main one, which I think is very prevalent, and some of you may be, asking about, is, okay, this is all great, but how do I know that people who came from these certain ad networks and from these, different ads and from direct traffic actually did the conversion events that I want, and then I'm attributing them in the way I want to attribute them? So that's what I want to get into next. And so if I click onto this tab over here, we're actually going to have to look at a bit of a different table here. Just to orient yourself, I've selected 3 key events over here. The first visit a user has, when they complete a sign up, and when they purchase for the first time. These are, I'd say, 3 key common touch points in, a generic product. We're breaking down this in a table by UTM campaign, aka UTM parameters that are passed through in the URL when a user visits a site. In this case, what campaign that we ran are they coming from? And what percentage of the conversion for each of these touch points are distributed across these campaigns? Now you may be thinking, Shane, this is great and all, but how am I defining what conversion gets distributed? How am I defining that, this gets distributed evenly, or we just want the last touch point in the user journey to get credit for first purchase, but we want the first touch point in a user journey to get credit for first visit, things of that nature. And that kind of goes into the problem of multi-touch attribution. How do we have a user journey with 5 different touch points and then distribute credit for one event across those 5 different touch points, for example? Well, we can actually go ahead and do that in Mixpanel now. So if I scroll down here to this breakdown tab, you'll notice we are breaking down by and attributing by UTM campaign. What that essentially does is it now enables these new tags here on all these events. And if I click into one of these, you'll notice there's a ton of different multi-touch attribution models that I can now put on one of these events. So for example, right now we're applying a U-shaped model shown here to the sign up completed event. But we can make it a last touch, credit 100% of the conversion to the last touch point, first touch 100% to the first touch point, participation, time decay, linear, U-shaped, J-shaped. We have a ton of different models that come out of the box depending on how you think it's best to distribute the credit for that conversion. And if none of these work, you can even create your own custom model as well. So this is just an example of how multi-touch attribution can work and how the attribution capabilities in Mixpanel are now very robust and probably pretty serviceable in a lot of cases to more complex attribution questions that you might have. And again, it's allowing you to fine tune and make sure that the credit for these conversions are distributed accurately in the way you want so that you're able to make really, really high quality analysis on what is actually driving conversions the most and where should we invest our marketing resources more. All right, so at this point, we've gone over ad data, seen what you can build out with that. We've gone over multi-touch attribution, seen the questions you can answer with that and the kind of reports you could build with that. But we're all kind of still delving in the world of feature functionality. We're not really saying, okay, how do we take these and scale them up into a full-on marketing dashboard or a full-on marketing table where we can go ahead and see all the metrics we care about all at once? Because what marketers often like to do is set their metrics up and then have an easy, efficient way to check them, to digest them, to change them, to tweak things as time goes on. So that's the next piece I want to get into, which is what is the end state once you go ahead and use these features to build out reports and iterate on them and get into a kind of finalized state, if you will. So one example of what this might look like is something like this. This is a table actually I built out because it's very similar to what many marketers are used to today in, say, a Google Analytics. We have a bunch of different marketing metrics here at the top: sessions, cost per click, transactions, revenue, return on ad spend, et cetera, et cetera. We can see them across, we're breaking down by campaign again, attributing by campaign, and we can see how for each of these different campaigns, these numbers vary depending on what source the user actually came from. And we're applying some of these attribution models again, just like we were before. So this is nice, and it's giving me a view of all the marketing metrics I care about all in one place. But quite personally, I think we can do better. I think that this is an okay end state, but I think that Mixpanel allows us to do so much more with our boards feature. And so instead of, pushing you towards something like this, which I wanted to show and show that it is possible, I think something more along the lines of this could be potentially more visually appealing and more functionally appealing as well, where it's a full-on marketing board where it's more organized. Those metrics are split up into different reports. We're able to have context on the board explaining what these reports are and what questions they're trying to answer. And it's more visually appealing, and you're able to quickly get to the specific metric or specific question that you want answered on the board efficiently. You'll notice we're able to build out all sorts of different reports, expanding on the one or two examples that we worked in before. Things like return on ad spend trend lines, clicks by ad platform, return on ad spend by source, engagement questions like what are the top pages visited by a user? What is our bounce rates? How do campaigns impact conversion? That was the conversions by ETM campaign report we were in. We can look at time to first conversion. There's a whole suite of reports that you can build out with some of these features that we just showed and some of the features already available in Mixpanel today to get to an end state like this. So now some of you might be probably thinking, Shane, this is great. This looks awesome. I want to get here, but I want to make sure this isn't going to be an incredibly painful experience to get here. And I'm not just going to be thrown some, blank board and be told, all right, just build stuff out, and it might take me a week. It might take me a month. Who knows? To alleviate that problem, we actually have a marketing template available in Mixpanel. And so just to quickly showcase that, let me actually go ahead and try to build out a new board. And there you'll notice there's this button here, use a template. I'm going to go and click that. And we have a bunch of different templates here, 5 available today. The one that I want to showcase right now is our marketing KPIs template. So let me go ahead and start from that template. It's going to ask me for 2 key events. So we have an activation event. Let's go and just select sign up completed and a conversion event. Let's say purchase completed. There we go. Let's create the board. And what's going to happen here is in a matter of about 3 seconds, we're going to get a suite of reports pretty similar to some of the ones we just saw, acting as a starting point for us to get to insights quickly, get some metrics up that we can use, that we can analyze, that we can take action off of. And we can also very easily iterate on this board as well. All these reports, we can click into them, we can edit them, we can iterate on them. We can go ahead and add in new reports, add in new content to this board, use it as a starting point to build off of and really tailor it to the metrics we want and to a structure that we care about. But you're starting from, 0.60% instead of 0% the way there. So again, this is part of the reason how Mixpanel keeps you going fast to value. A lot of our features and a lot of the way our UI is structured is designed to make sure that you can get to value fast. This is just another piece in that whole equation. So one final thing I do want to call out, and just to summarize what we've been through so far yet again, we've looked at ad data. We've looked at how we can apply multi-touch attribution models in Mixpanel now. We've looked at some example reports you can build out, what a finalized table or dashboard for marketing might look like, and how you can get to that quickly. The last piece I think that's missing is, this is all great, but how do we get some of that data in? How do we get that ad spend data in? How do we take some of the insights that we generate from boards like this, export key cohorts of user segments we find into, say, a messaging platform, or to be able to target them in an email? Because that's really part of what marketers want to do as well, is discover key user segments for retargeting and go and reach out to them. So in that vein, we actually have a ton of integrations with places that you might want to export cohorts to, and do that outreach, the outreach to as well. So for example, you can export to Braze, you can export to Facebook and Google ads to retarget people in advertising. You can export to MailChimp, Marketo, all sorts of different marketing tools that you might be using today. So you can easily take that user data that you're discovering in Mixpanel and put it to work quickly and efficiently. So that's just something else I did want to call out. And to get your ad data into Mixpanel, we have a couple of very easy integrations with these ad platforms as well. We have ways to pull your data into a Google Sheet, quickly and easily send it into Mixpanel efficiently. And once you set up a link and a kind of job with that takes your ad data from an ad platform and ships it into Mixpanel, that process then is a smooth, efficient, automatic, recurring process. And we have a bunch of documentation on our site that details how that might go as well for you to look at. All right. And I think with that concludes today's demo. I hope you guys found this informative and useful. And if you have any questions, now would be a great time to put them in the chat. or in the Q&A, and me and Ruben will go ahead and begin answering those. But thank you. All right. So I guess let's go ahead and dive into these questions. There seems to be a lot. So
I've
let's
submitted answers to most all of them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Perla, thank you for reposting that one into the Q&A. Question from the folk chat: is it possible to group boards? I was thinking how I can organize them by team. Though I'm not sure about grouping boards specifically, Shane, you might know. Our search functionality allows you to search by creator, by type of report, whether it's going to be a board or a specific insights report or a specific funnel report. So the search functionality itself kind of does a lot of that grouping for you. In addition, there are sharing options on boards that can give all all folks on a particular team or other like permission status access to a particular board, but not to other boards. And when that happens, the boards that you have access to will show up on your own sidebar. So a lot of that work is sort of already embedded into the functionality.
Right. Follow-up question from Alex. If you can't group them, from your experience, do you recommend you create a board per team? I think it really depends. Is each team going to look at their own set of metrics that they care about? Maybe that would be a good method of organization. If maybe there's certain different types of metrics, like maybe you have a marketing board that two teams want to look at, and then a key funnels board that somebody else wants to look at, and an exploratory flows board. There's different means of organization. I think as long as it's very clear what types of reports and what types of questions are being answered on which board, and you have a good naming convention for the board title to make that abundantly clear, people will probably be able to use our Discover functionality, which allows them to search and organize between the boards to figure out where they need to go, where the reports they want to look at are. Now, if it's very siloed and like team A only looks at reports on board A, team B only looks at reports on board B, maybe one board per team makes sense. But I think it varies depending on your org structure and a little bit depending on what questions you actually want answered and if there's kind of cross-pollination between teams on those questions. All right. Got another question in the chat from Jesse. Is it possible to import ad data for an entire account, or does this data integration need to be built for each campaign? When you're saying for an entire account, or you mean like say my Google Ads account or my Facebook Ads account? Because that's what essentially would be is these ad networks give you a dump of all those aggregate numbers that I showed before. You're going to be pulling that doing it per network, not per campaign or per ad that you're running. And so you're going to get the aggregate numbers across the board for those. And so you only need to really do it once per network. And once it's set up, it runs.
We like to say once per network per day.
Yes. Well, the
and
per
being
day
able, yeah, sorry.
Oh no, the per day piece meaning you don't have to set it up once per day. It just send the data in once per day.
Which is going to allow you to do things like breaking down by network. All of the ad data events are going to more or less be in the same format. So you're basically going to be able to have, I don't know, a couple jobs ago, I was a marketer, and just like the act of switching between these tabs and seeing dashboards that were basically telling me similar metrics but looked slightly different from each other was itself quite a headache. When you have consistency in your like ad events per network, it becomes very easy to just compare those networks to each other in one place by, in this case, breaking down by network, as Shane showed.
Exactly, because maybe guess what? Facebook calculates cost per click different than TikTok, different than LinkedIn, different than Google. And now you're comparing apples to oranges. Do you really know where you're spending the most efficiently? You don't. With Mixpanel, you do, because it's the same metrics, the same calculation. Now you can make informed decisions, and it can make it more efficiently in one place. Also, one other piece there, the once a day piece, the reason we recommend that is because a lot of these ad networks, their resolution is around 24 hours or so. So if you try to do it like 3 times per day, you're just going to get the same number 3 times over. So I wouldn't recommend doing that. Just a quick call out there. Cool. All right. Let's see. We got some more questions in here. Answered by Ruben. All right. Do we have a LinkedIn ads on the list for future integrations? That's a good question, Tracy. I have no idea. I can go back and I can ask, and it's something we can look into, but I actually don't know off the top of my head. question from the public chat. Oh, it's already there. Recording be available. There we go. Oh, that's already been answered. Okay. I don't believe there's any other outstanding questions unless you see one that I'm missing, Ruben.
Just speaking to Trish's question about LinkedIn ads, just to click, like, there is always the option to export a cohort from Mixpanel UI, right? You can always grab a segment of users who have or haven't done certain things and export that list as a CSV. I'm not intimately familiar with LinkedIn ads and audiences, but I imagine there's a way to import a list. That's pretty standard fare. So like that is always a way that you can retarget and sort of leverage Mixpanel analysis or events that users did or didn't do, properties that users did or don't have, campaigns that they have or haven't seen, and sort of be able to iterate on that audience and do better advertising from there.
Yep. Great call out, Ruben. Okay, it looks like we do have another question in the chat. Do we have any resources we use as a template to scope out new boards with teams? In terms of scoping out new boards, I'm curious what specifically you mean by that we can share. In terms of templates, we have the 5 or 6 that I quickly showcased in the demo today. Those are pre-built templates that you supply some starter events to, and it generates a set of boards from. You can iterate off of those like I showed in the demo. We actually are tinkering with potential features to expand, build out more templates, and allow for user created templates in the future. So that's potentially something that's coming down the pipeline. More templates, more options to create starting points. We've been adding those templates very slowly over time, and something we want to expand on. But I guess in terms of scoping out new boards with teams, if you can just clarify what you mean by that. But let's say you're there we go. Building out a new board for your customer support team. Do you start with just a template in Mixpanel, or do you do a discovery call with the team? Okay. Well, good question. I think that kind of goes into strategically, do we know for sure what the team wants is aligned with that board, right? I would say talk to the team, see what kind of metrics they care about, what questions they want answered in Mixpanel, generate the template. It takes 5 seconds. See if those reports align with those questions. Maybe some of them will, maybe some of them won't. Either way, it's now a starting point. So you can take the template and then say, okay, maybe there's 2 reports that are kind of more specific to our use case that are included in the template. Let's just add those on at the end, right? Or maybe there's 2 reports you don't really care about. You can delete them. That's the great thing about templates. Starting point. It's malleable. Once you understand what the team wants and what the team needs in a dashboard, you can go ahead and iterate on the template to then create that.
There's another question. There's another question from Jesse. Can we run causal impact using ad data? That's an interesting one. Jesse, I'm not sure if you have played around with our impact report, which includes some causal analysis. But essentially, our impact report allows you to say, hey, when a new feature was launched, or even like a new campaign, when people did this existing event with this new property option, did that end up moving the needle on events that they did later? For example, did people who started reading the reviews, which is the thing that we just launched, make them purchase more down the line? That's like a good sort of causal impact type of question. With ad data, yes, you can certainly use things like UTM parameters, or kind of like campaign names. Did this new campaign make people more likely to buy or do some type of engagement event? So yes, absolutely. With ad data specifically, that sort of 1 a day per platform thing, keep in mind that's aggregate. That is not going to be tied to an individual user. So that would not, in my opinion, be a good use case for the impact report. I would more say kind of like what Shane was showing, where you have that ad spend, and then you kind of have right below that the signups line, and you can kind of see visually how those metrics are related.
Cool. All right. Any other questions? We can give it a minute or 2 before we formally wrap. Yeah. No, thank you, Annie and Alex. Thank you for showing up, for engaging, and making this a a little more exciting than me just feeling like I'm talking at a wall for 30 minutes. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys. All right. So I guess with that, probably no more questions. We can go ahead and wrap. And thank you for coming today. If you have any more follow-up questions or something comes up a couple hours from now that you wish you'd asked, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat very quickly. I'm more than happy to go ahead and assist with any other questions that may come up. We're always available. So yeah, cool. I guess with that, we can go ahead and end the webinar. Thank you guys for coming, and hope you enjoyed. Take care.
Good time, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.